It's 10:03 on July 11th, 2024. I call the meeting of the Concord Transportation Advisory Committee to order. We'll do a roll call. Mariana,
Present.
Laura,
Present.
Dan,
Here.
Phil,
Here.
Nick,
Here.
and myself. So it's great to have the full seated committee here. It's wonderful. With regard to minutes, I am preparing the minutes for the June 20th meeting, but I haven't finished. Laura, you have a set of minutes in progress, right?
Still outstanding, I'm afraid. Yes, I'm sorry.
So I'd like to aim for both me and you to get those in, at least a few days or a week before our next August 1st meeting, so we can kind of catch up. And I wonder if anyone would volunteer to prepare minutes for today's meeting. Phil, thank you very much, Phil.
Sure.
Okay.
I might not be here for August 1st meeting.
Okay. All right, then in terms of chair's report, a few things. Number one, Concord unfortunately did not receive a microtransit grant that was applied for, but the information that went into that and ideas that went into that application, of course, we should hold on to and try to use for seeking further funding for microtransit or local public transit. Second of all, I had asked Heather and Elizabeth to forward to everyone a link to the MPO Vision Zero newsletter, which with a lot of interesting links. And if you actually go online to www.bostonmpo.org/vision0, there is some interesting information, including a map of fatalities in the whole region, separating automobile only versus involving vulnerable users. And if you look on the map in the Concord area, there's one of the automobile only, and there are two vulnerable user fatalities since 2017. So anyway, I think this is something we should be following and using if we can. Another item just to mention is that our select board liaison, Terry Ackerman, reminded me, and we had spoken of it before. Laura had mentioned it, I know, about how do we best communicate back and forth with other committees with overlapping concerns, and is it us creating formal liaisons, or looking forward at the calendar and trying to identify the most useful times to be present or whatever. So I may put a discussion of that on the August 1st meeting to have the committee try to decide what's the right efficient way to do that. The fourth item I wanted to just mention as comment is I had asked, again, we sent out a note about a MBTA funding cliff little webinar or whatever that happened on Tuesday. And Laura, I think you said you were going to be able to go to that. Can you just give a very, very brief summary of what you saw?
Sure. So this was the MBTA fiscal cliff and the future of public transit. And they had three speakers. It was hosted by MAPC, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, and they had Brian Kane, who's the executive director of the MBTA Advisory Board. It's kind of a watchdog organization for the MBTA. And then also Mary Skelton Roberts and Thomas McGee, who are both members of the MBTA Board of Directors. It was a great presentation. It is going to be recorded and released, so you'll be able to watch it another time. But it's sort of, I mean, it talked just a great learning opportunity for anybody who's interested in like how we ended up where we are now with all of the backlog of state of good repair stuff. And the sort of key thing is that they're developing the budget that has to be done by next spring, and they're looking at a $700 million operating budget deficit. And so if they can't get the money to meet that, they're going to have to do some really awful austerity cuts. Some of the things that they cited were eliminating weekend commuter rail service, completely eliminating the ferry program, some really significant austerity cuts. So it highlighted for me like how desperately important it is for us to have our eyes on this and be advocating for this within the legislature and with the administration. I think some of the sort of I tried to pull out some key concepts, but Brian Kane sort of summed it up really well in his talks. He said, it's not just a matter of throwing money at the T. We have to give them the right kind of money and change the structure of how it's funded to make it actually work going forward.
Okay. All right. So
yeah.
I think moving on, I think when that reporting is posted, we should put a link to that on the TAC website, and everybody should kind of spread the word and take a look, because it's a very, very important regional concern, I believe. Okay, so that ends the chair's report, and Laura's helping me with the chair's report. The next item is to briefly discuss the fact that the full Mass Department of Transportation, VHB consultant Route 2 corridor study, District 3 and 4 is online and open for public comment. And I believe the comment period ends the end of this month. So we had previously, after there were some PowerPoint aided presentations by MassDOT giving a preview of this, we had sent a letter, I believe, to the select board advising we had sent in a letter. So I wonder whether the members of the TAC think we should send any further comments. Obviously, individuals can look at the report, which is easy to find, and submit comments. But do I hear any interest in submitting another letter, either the select board or?
What we submitted to the select board, they forwarded to the
right
to MassDOT. So it's more than just we did that. So
right.
I think from my point of view, having read through the current version of their document, it looks like they've incorporated some of the feedback. I see more acknowledgement now of the issues related to safe crossing of Route 2 at the Concord intersection. So I think that it's been effective.
Should we kind
Can I've got my hand up, Mark.
Please.
I've read through most of the study. I do think that we need to submit a public comment as a committee. I strongly advocate for that. I don't think that our comments, the way that they were sent in the first time, will be officially recorded based on my experience making comments on these kinds of documents. So we should submit our comments directly through the public comment portal. I have taken your letter, Nick, and made some updates. I actually don't think that they've made any changes. Comparing the slide deck to what's in the study, I don't believe that they made any changes to the study since the presentation. And I am still very concerned about the increase to the number of lanes proposed. I mean, they're proposing that they would increase the number of travel lanes at the Main Street crossing to 7 lanes of travel. You'll have to cross 7 highway lanes in order to get from one side of 62 to the other, or one side of Route 2 to the other on 62. So I think that it's absolutely important that we submit a public comment as a committee and as individuals. I did take Nick's letter and I updated it because I was a little short on time. It's kind of like when you're packing before a trip and you only have a couple of hours, and so you throw everything in the suitcase instead of a very carefully curated thing. So I have kind of a long document. I'm not sure the public comment period ends on July 25th. So we can't have another meeting to discuss it, but I wonder if I could share it with the committee, and then comments could be sent to Elizabeth for consolidation before we were to submit it. But I'm happy to share my screen and show you what I have.
I have a concern. That could take a long time in today's meeting.
Yeah, no, we can't do it. We can't do it in today's meeting, but, well, there are a couple of things maybe we could do. One thing would be to post it and, ask, whether Elizabeth could consolidate other comments and then just, submit it, based on the committee input. It doesn't necessarily have to be uniform, voted input if it is, well, it's probably better if it is.
Well, you can't say it represents the committee if it's.
No, you can't. How much of what is, you think is important now, Laura, is, already incorporated in the first letter?
I think that because the first letter was written before we had access to the document, I think that it lacks a little bit of detail. And I would say that it's I think that the main thing is that it was really helpful for me to be able to go in and see what the study's scope was, because I don't think that they had the full list of the scope points.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that I think it would be good to update the letter.
Bill?
Yeah, so I think my comment, at least for purposes of this meeting, is I agree with Laura that the scope of the study and the way that the problem was defined, it is a problem because of, when you, in my view, define away all of the collateral issues to highway construction and focus only in on highway construction, you miss a lot. And as a result of that, the study, by its own terms, and acknowledges that it fails to address issues, for example, connection of the two sides of Concord through means other than automobile transit. It fails to address active transportation.
I don't think that's accurate. The plan includes it at the Main Street crossing. It shows I don't say they're adequate because they haven't done detailed design, but it shows bicycle changes and pedestrian changes. I don't think they're adequate, but they have changed it.
I will say at the very beginning of the executive summary, the summary says quite clearly that what they are focused on and what they are not including. And at least in my view, it was a missed opportunity. I think it's true, Nick, that they acknowledge that this is a first step, that there are many additional steps that would need to be undertaken in order to implement anything. So, that's fair. And the other thing is that the study was done prior to the decommissioning of MCI Concord. So it doesn't really address the opportunities for reconfiguration of Route 2 and the Rotary that are presented by the availability of a big parcel of land that might be used to, reimagine the design of the entire, sort of little area right there. So, at the bottom line for me is, I think it's a good start. It's helpful. But, my sense is that, we have to keep on MassDOT not to simply say, oh, well, this is just a highway reconstruction as the project and the ideas of this proceed in the future.
So we have a very important next item on the agenda, which is to go over our advisory document, vote on it. So if we can give this 10 minutes max, what should we do? We could look at Laura's draft
Before you move on to the next topic.
Yes.
Can I guess, say something now?
Sure,
I mean, very
Laura,
brief, but Laura
just
also
one minute.
had
Laura,
that.
go ahead.
I think that this warrants our full attention and discussion. If we don't have enough time to discuss it at today's meeting, can you hear me? I'm getting a
Yeah,
little
off and on. It
feedback.
broke up, but
Can
I
you hear
think
me?
we got the gist. You're saying if we can't do it at today's meeting.
But if we can't do it today, I think that we need to call another meeting as soon as possible, honestly, next week perhaps, and actually discuss this and put together a comment. And I just want to emphasize that it said it in Nick's draft, and I tried to sort of re-emphasize it in my draft. Discussion and surveys of our residents consistently indicate that the most urgent transportation priority for Concord residents is a safer crossing of Route 2 for all road users. It is the top priority. So this could be the most significant change in our community. And although, yes, Phil, it is the first step, they're very clear in the study that they're actually going to start implementing some of these things immediately. So this is a very significant document for our community, and we need to be very thoughtful about how we respond to it. The public comment period is over on July 25th. So it doesn't
okay,
give
just a minute. So Laura,
Yeah.
so Terry's got her hand up too, and I'll take her comment and we'll comment from the public. But if we can get a quorum for a Zoom only half-hour meeting, and before then your draft could be posted, then we can take advantage of this opportunity, time-sensitive opportunity to kind of weigh in as a committee, which I think will be much more effective than just individuals weighing in or et cetera. So let's I'll ask committee, do you think it makes sense to have a half-hour Zoom only meeting sometime in a week?
Sure, as long as we
Next
can
week.
get the document.
Yeah, and Laura, you can post whatever, send to Elizabeth and Heather, whatever draft you have. That was a very good statement you said about this is the most, one of the most important things that citizens are asking for. So, Terry, can,
Just
if you
very
want to add a
briefly,
quick comment, and then I have a request for comment from the public.
right, so just very briefly, I want to mention that the MCI committee, I think, is also working on this. And you mentioned in the beginning about liaisons. You guys might want to work with them because maybe they've already done a lot of what you want to do. I'm not sure. Elizabeth might know. Oops.
Yeah, Terry, I can try to reach out to the chair.
The question whether MCI Concord
Is considering responding to this
the MassDOT
request for
study.
public comment to the MassDOT study.
I have not heard that
Okay, we
they
can-
have even
Yeah.
discussed it, and I can tell you between now and the 25th of July, I'm not sure that they would even be in a position.
Okay, I can potentially talk to the chair, but I think we should just do this ourselves, especially because of the timing. Please, if you would state your name for the record.
Yeah. Janet Miller,
Hi, Janet.
1647 Main Street. I'm on the Climate Action Committee.
Mhm.
I'm really speaking for myself, I think, but I did want to let you know that Jerry Frankel has drafted a letter that we plan to send out on the Route 2 corridor.
Mhm.
We meet on the 22nd, so we should just about get in under the wire to send it out. But certainly the Climate Action Committee is interested in not, reminding the Department of Transportation that they're not just responsible for the roads, they're also responsible for public transport. And the Fitchburg line essentially runs parallel to Route 2.
Mhm. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'll coordinate, if people want to decide on a time right now for a follow-up meeting next week, or shall we just, I think we'll communicate offline.
Or we
And
could,
Laura, as soon as you can get a draft to Elizabeth and Heather, that it can be posted, people can look at it, the better.
I'll send it today. Oh, we may
Thank-
need more than 30 minutes. That's my only comment.
Okay, well, we'll try to get a room for an hour, but try to keep it focused. All right. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is our main act for today, which is to finalize and approve text advisory document related to the what we have assessed our transportation priorities for the town. The draft document with a couple of small revisions has been posted on the website. And I wonder, I'd like to hear from committee members if they have any further additions or changes or questions. Who would like to talk first?
Well, I have one.
Okay, Nick.
I just noticed the other day, which is, one of the edits that was done to it, right at the top, the title says Transportation and Mobility Plan. And that was the intent, that this sort of be the top level plan. And then underneath it, an additional phrase got put, and I think it was in the spirit of the fact that there was supposed to be a response. The town is in the process of responding to Stan Tech on the study. And so that's what the second thing is about, but I'd like that second line, scope of work feedback, to be removed. Because this document, I did not prepare this as something specifically for Stan Tech, but rather as the plan, the basis of the plan for the town. So I think the scope of work feedback I think that's what Steve Dukran is putting together. And so if we could all agree to remove that second line from the title, I'd be happier.
Okay. I'll just go around and ask for comments, and then we'll pull it all together. Mariana, do you have any comments or suggestions for change in the document?
Nothing to add right now. Thank you.
Okay. Dan,
Well,
No, nothing more.
excuse me.
That's a good idea, Nick.
but
Taking
to
up-
Nick's point, this is not the transportation and mobility plan. So is this transportation and mobility
Who
plan
says it's not?
feedback?
No, well, okay, excuse me. Yeah, I think what Elizabeth is saying is important, that we could change the title to something like Concord Transportation and Mobility Priorities, or something like that.
It was intended and written as a plan. It has goals, it has guiding principles, and it has a series of tasks to be done by the town.
So
That's what
then
the plan is.
then the consultant is doing something, the same thing?
I don't know what the consultant is doing. Steve Dukran is supposedly working on the scope of work for the consultant, and that should fall within this plan.
Okay, let's come back to this in a second. I want to hear Dan's comment finished and make sure everybody speaks first round. Dan?
Well, I think the scope of work should be taken out, but in terms of I don't have any other comments about it.
Laura, what do you think about the document in general? Let me just get everything on the table first. And then we can cycle back to the title.
Document in general, my only concern was the parking strategy section. I know that the planning board is working on their own parking study, and I just wanted to know, maybe Elizabeth Hughes, you can comment on whether you think that there might be a duplication of efforts if we have this section in the way that it is.
So the planning board is working on zoning bylaw parking requirements. They're not doing a parking study. So so I think that's the distinction. I think some people are talking about, we need to look at zoning and what the parking requirements, and then other people are talking about something similar to like what Nelson Nygaard did in 2012, which was had to do with public parking and parking, town parking lots and on street, and that was a parking study, and which is different than what the planning board's doing. They're just looking at the parking requirements in the zoning bylaw.
Got it. So it's a more narrow focus. I thought it was more expansive. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well,
Well, it's a zoning, it's
Yeah.
focusing on parking and zoning.
Right.
yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Elizabeth, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. It's aimed towards informing discussions about possible changes to zoning bylaws
Yes.
that require parking or affect
Joint parking, whether. you know,
other new options like
two
that.
spaces per dwelling,
Right.
dwelling unit or, off-site parking and
Right.
all of those zoning things.
Okay, so there's it could be informed by a general parking study. There is an existing one that needs to be reviewed. But it doesn't create a study of that magnitude itself. That's not what is going on with planning. Laura, any further comment?
Yeah, the other thing that I wonder if we could add to the first one, or maybe it's incorporated in here in a way that I'm not recognizing it, but we've talked a lot about traffic calming strategies, like the design possibilities that need to be sort of vetted through the community. Like we talked about raised crosswalks a lot, for instance. Are we going to use them? Is
So,
that in here in a way that I'm not recognizing it?
Yeah, in item 6, Nick has 6.1.1 define guidelines for controlling vehicle speed through
Controlling
roadway
vehicle-
design.
Yeah.
Is that close enough?
Yeah, we might just want to use the phrase traffic calming since but it's
I'm
fine.
really-
It's fine as it is.
Okay, good. I think we get some consensus. So, Phil, what are your general reactions and suggestions? I know you had wanted to add, and I think it's been put in about regional
Right, yeah,
transit.
that was
as
my
a
comment.
Key important point. Not
That's
to miss.
I had a question about that one. I saw that. I think that's an important point that had been missed, but it would be good if what was put in there had some indication of what was gonna be produced. Because what was the wording suggested? I think it was in one of these. Do you know where it was, Phil?
That's in 5.1.3, that comment, my
Oh,
comment.
okay, I didn't have a copy of the exact wording.
Yeah.
The
It's a little
wording.
small, but.
Okay, investigate regional transit options. Yeah, so as it stands there's no deliverable. It's investigate. I could go on investigating forever and nothing would happen. So if we could,
Analysis paralysis.
right, if we could
Maybe.
phrase it in terms of something that would be produced or something that we would have
Mo-
afterwards, that would be
What
much
if you
stronger.
said,
Implement,
no, well, model, something about,
or maybe
Like-
recommend,
identify local models.
Identify available local regional transit options, something like that.
Oh,
So it-
Opportunities or,
well,
what would you think?
Identify,
currently available
yeah,
regional transportation options.
Can that be incorporated into the first paragraph under the goal? Yeah, to identify and, you know, all this is saying is safe and efficient movement of all people within Concord.
Well, yeah, but this is between towns, so I
so
think the path we're on-
identify opportunities.
existing
and-
opportunities for regional,
How about identify existing opportunities and promote regional
well,
for
that gets
and
into
promote.
that's-
implementation.
Um,
I think if we just identify the regional opportunities, and if you somehow. There's another step you could take, which is somehow identifying the likelihood that we could connect up with them or what state they're in.
Well, you could say identify regional opportunities and implementation requirements or something like that.
Right, that would be good.
So identify current
Yeah, current,
opportunities.
For regional transit and what did I just say?
implementation requirements.
Implementation requirements.
right, I think that's good enough.
Yeah,
That's what you said.
yeah, we want to be at the right kind of level on this.
That's
and-
good, so thank you for that.
Okay, so did I miss anybody? No, I don't think so.
Hey,
So,
to Laura's point, Mark, on,
Yes.
you know, the traffic calming, I'm
Yeah.
just looking at 6.1.2. And wondering if, I mean, I'm not sure what is meant by speed limit enforcement. I mean, is this,
I can tell you exactly what I mean by it, which is that, people, when we talk about existing issues, problems with speed of vehicles, people's first reaction is, oh, let's change the speed limit. Well, the speed limits aren't enforced, so it doesn't do you any good to change the speed limit, right? There's minimal enforcement in town. Residents in town are frequently given warnings. That isn't, I don't think that's a viable strategy if you really intend to use the speed limits, okay? So that's what I mean by it, which is that I think the town has to have a frank discussion about the use of speed limits, whether or not we take them seriously, how they're gonna be used, how often police are gonna be out there enforcing them, and whether or not they're gonna hand out tickets, okay? That's what I
so,
mean.
okay, but that is in terms of a policing of the current regulations. I mean, I'm thinking, how do we incorporate Laura's, I mean, we can enforce it by virtue of making it more difficult to go faster through town with raised crosswalks, for example. That's an enforcement mechanism of sorts that doesn't
Oh, good,
involve.
okay, good, so we could add to it sort of something like comma, enforcement and road design.
Well, we already have the road design in the
Okay.
611, but what I think is one missing element here is the regulatory part. So what you could say is determine effective strategies for speed limit regulation and enforcement. Because, you know, there are bills that keep coming up in the House about, in the Massachusetts legislature about changing limitations on, you know, changing the way that regulations are written, and regulation and enforcement fit hand in hand. You've talked about the physical infrastructure in the one.
I think regulation is really good because what it brings to mind for me, which is missing from here, I think that those automated, you're going this fast things, I think those are somewhat effective. And I think that they're part of it, and I would consider those a part of regulation. They aren't enforcement, but they're a way of reminding you what's happening and, you know, trying to control a little, you know, in a soft way, so.
I'm very,
So I would be happy to add regulation in that, regulation and enforcement.
yeah.
So
and-
I already got it.
You got it,
Okay.
okay.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thanks a lot. Okay, and I think,
In
yeah,
that
go
section,
ahead. Sure,
in that
Laura.
section, I I wonder if we might talk about, so if we want to have 2 bullet points, I sort of think the 2 bullet points for me would be to define the desired speed in different areas, and then to come up with strategies through road design and enforcement to achieve those speeds. Because that's really the issue, is, you know, figuring out, okay, what speed do we want people to be traveling down Hubbard Street at? And then, okay, what's,
Okay, so
let's look
how
at our,
would you say,
let's
how would you
let's
say
look
that,
at
how would you say that concisely? How
um
would you?
define the safe and desirable speed for motor vehicles traveling in various parts of Concord, and determine strategies for effective, you know,
I think that determine the strategies as part of the regulation and enforcement and the road design
Well,
that's already here.
but
I like the first part though.
But you could, you know, again, I think we're doing great at keeping this concise. But to me, it might be clearer to add a first item and bump the other 2 down and just say, you know, I don't know how to put the words in it, but basically, what are the appropriate speeds for various pathways in the town for motor vehicles? I mean, you know, assess. I mean, things, you know, for me, one of the problems that multiplies in a lot of cases is if the limit keeps changing, people don't know what it is. And it interacts with, you know, I think that's kind of the goal there. So I would suggest something like recommend appropriate speeds for various roadways in Concord. I mean, I don't know.
That's, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
That's pretty good.
Recommend and, either,
Well,
I'm sorry.
you said
So
determine appropriate.
determine appropriate. I mean, some of these are very obvious, but if we neglect the obvious, we're not doing our job.
Aren't there criteria that determine what safe speed limits are for certain types of roads?
They are, but they don't work very well.
Yeah, that's getting into the implementation of this. I just want to see if there's a consensus that that's an effective way of stating a goal.
I think it's fine.
A functional goal.
So what do you
Phil?
have, Elizabeth?
So-
Wait, can I think I can't, I need to write something down. I can't just like pull it out of my head, at least not today. So let me see if I can put it in a way. Determine the desired use and desired speed, motor vehicle speed for various roadways in Concord, and then to determine strategies for controlling vehicle speed through roadway design, enforcement, and regulation.
I think it's good, to separate the roadway design as a separate item from the regulation and enforcement, because those are,
Right.
and I think it'll be easier, but I think we have a consensus that determining appropriate vehicle speeds is an important bullet to put in. Phil?
Okay, so
Wait, so can you say the first part again, Laura?
It could be, maybe it should be define desired use and motor vehicle speed for various roadways in Concord.
I don't know what use means in that case, so.
What I'm trying to get at and failing to communicate is like, okay, this is a neighborhood street. The desired outcome on this street is that people feel really safe walking in.
I think that will happen as a result
Okay.
of trying to get it. the
Yeah,
design.
I think-
Just leave
yeah.
the use out.
I think that comes with appropriate.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
With
Then just
keeping
take
it-
that part out.
Phil, you
Okay,
have a
so-
comment.
this is just a general comment, not about the language. But I just want to remind everybody that the select board has already adopted chapter 90, section 17C, which is why those signs would
Right,
say
20
speed
miles
limits
an
is
hour
25 miles
posted.
unless otherwise posted. So
Right.
just to put it on the table to
Right,
remind everybody,
Absolutely,
the
absolutely.
town has
But
already
that's-
established a
that's-
policy.
that was a
May not be effective, but it is.
That's the state's political attempt at mollifying people.
Right, it didn't work, but
Yeah.
I just wanna, for the record, so
Okay,
we'll always have.
Thank you, Phil.
Okay,
Okay, so besides the title, is everybody pretty happy with the document as now revised?
So my only question is, so you just added two things. And slightly changed two things in 6.
Mhm.
Should those be highlighted blue for the consultant or not?
Would I say they would say them?
The
again?
first one is define the desired appropriate vehicle speeds for various roadways.
Yes.
And then the 613, determine and effective strategy for speed limit regulations and enforcement.
Yeah, I'd say both of them could be.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, it's.
Elizabeth, was that
it's not
first
up
one
to-
decide or design?
The first one was define.
Oh, define, okay.
I think the intent on the blue things was things that possibly could go to the consultants, not necessarily recommendations, just. So that's all. So it's not a hugely important, but I think they both could be highlighted.
Okay, so again, last chance, besides the title, does anybody have an edit or addition?
I just have a question. What if
Yes,
it's
go ahead,
not
Terry.
blue? Who's doing it if it's not in blue?
Well, we can go around the table and see what people think. My feeling is that, and this relates back to the finding a most appropriate title, that while this document can serve as a guiding document for the current consultant and assisted comprehensive transportation mobility study, it actually is more than that and has other value as a general assessment by TAC of the transportation goals and needs in the town. So in a way, what Nick did by highlighting certain things is kind of bridging it into the scope of work feedback. That's the highlighting, but the document itself has a more long-lasting function, which I think is this advisory committee has heard from the public, read certain documents, seen the results of the surveys and workshops done by Stantec, and pulling this all together with our own knowledge of the town, we are focusing this in a document that is a kind of a priority, our assessment of the priorities, assessment of transportation and mobility priorities for the town. So I mean, it raises the question of whether the highlighting should be a second document. So there's a version that's not highlighted, and then the second document with the highlights is with a little cover letter, what, you know, but I think we can leave it up to staff to decide how to utilize this in guiding the consultant's work. But I think it has a much broader and more permanent, more long-lasting. It's good to see all this work, and thank you very much, Nick. I think it has an awful lot of value because I haven't seen anything as comprehensive and readable and therefore useful. So Terry, does that long-winded feedback answer your question, or do you have a further comment?
Yes, I guess it does. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so the title, the words that popped into my mind, I
Oh, let
agree.
me- I'm
Okay,
sorry.
go ahead.
On the highlighting, at this point, it could all be taken out as far as I'm concerned. It was only intended as communication from the TAC, if we all agreed to it, to Steve Dukran and yourself in terms of things that we thought could be handed off to the consultant. That was the only reason it was done, and it could be.
I don't
removed at
Okay,
any time.
Steve,
Steve's here.
Steve Dukran, town engineer.
Can I, do I have the opportunity to comment?
Yes, please, and, yeah,
Join you.
please, yeah. And
They come up
we
next.
don't have to, we do need to finalize this document, but you're on the agenda to update on scope of work, so we'd love
All
to bring you in.
It's finalized.
Two things standardized. Well, I think we're almost finalized, except for the sort of title.
So it sounds like you're gonna make this a final official document, so I wanted to get a couple of things in, if I'm
Okay.
allowed.
All right.
So you're talking about, destinations, regional destinations. So if you look at the, what you call your goal, safe and efficient movement of all people within Concord, you might consider adding and to and from Concord, within and to and from, if you want to look at, outside of Concord. If you, that's one of the comments I had. Just to
How
understand,
about within and beyond?
beyond, yeah, all the way to
It's concise.
Florida, yeah.
Yeah, concise,
Patty.
well,
Just to understand the layout of the document, so you're calling it Transportation and Mobility Plan Advisory Document, is that what you call it?
well,
I may be
We haven't
ambitious, but I'm
decided.
hoping this would be if the TAC is an advisory committee. My point of view, if we agree to this, this is our advice to the select board on what the town's transportation plan should be. It's
But-
their decision whether or not it's gonna be that.
All right. All right,
Well-
you can call it whatever you want, that's
The
okay.
town needs such a thing.
Yeah,
so.
sure. Now, I just wanted to, because Elizabeth raised the point about what is Stantec's study.
You figure that out.
We'll figure that out.
Well,
We can change that.
by the-
It's
by
in
the-
contract right now, but.
okay, but anyway, keep going, I
Yeah.
have more thoughts about the
All
title.
So title, beyond title. So just looking at the document itself, right? So you have what you call the goal and guiding principles, which are great. And I would have liked to add, as I read your guiding principles, what about a recreation? We know we use the transportation infrastructure for recreating. Is that part of your
Like
guide?
bicycling on the roads.
Yeah, if,
instance.
yeah, so if you want to add that as a principle, if you want to promote bicycling, more pedestrian activity, if that's important.
I'd agree with that.
I think it's
I
actually
s-
outside the charge of our, you know, I mean, I think that recreation is valuable and important, but in some ways, thinking about the transportation needs of pedestrians and bicyclists often is neglected in
I
planning.
guess I share Laura's point. I'm a little concerned that could create conflicts that would be very
Yeah.
hard to resolve. I'd like to see, I think there's something separate. We may need at some point in a process like this in planning, you get to the point where you decide you need policies. And policies basically tell you what you can and can't do, what you should and shouldn't do. And I think there are probably going to be policies around recreational use of the roads that we need to define.
Yeah.
But I would hesitate putting them at that next level because I think it would.
All right, so then you went on to call their program, so you have 7 of them. So are these supposed to be transportation programs? Because if I look at each one of them, number one, you said it's more like a to-do, define and attain desired level of quality regarding road and sidewalk. And then number 2, establish goals. So these are different programs, right? The program is the whole thing. What would you call each of these, 1 through 7?
You could call them tasks, okay?
Tasks, okay.
I just use the term programs because I thought of each of them as somewhat comprehensive entity of its own. It interacts with all the others, but I just thought of them as programs.
You could change the program to the tasks, and you could change the title to Transportation Mobility Program. I am,
You could be consistent with Envision Concord and
what did they say?
instead of program, it would be action items.
Oh, that's fine. I'm fine with
Okay,
that.
action items, yeah, okay.
People are
that's fine.
familiar with
Yeah,
that whole
no,
matrix.
No, no,
Yeah, yeah,
no,
good.
it's just, to me, anyway, we'll get back to it. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, so just because seeing that we want to address a lot of these or most of these in the study, whether it's Stantec or,
Task is,
and we need to understand what we're driving
Yeah,
at here. Because when you first read them, I think, well, these are all separate goals, but you don't call them goals.
Well, they have goals.
well,
They have
I mean, we have the interaction of all these different, and if you
They're
make
more
a
than
change.
goals. They're deliverables.
Yeah.
So
They're
they're more like
action items.
tasks.
Yeah,
All right.
action items is fine.
So if you look at number 4, it's just called parking strategy. Right, and you do have subtasks. So
Right.
you do want to expand parking strategy to a task like you have the others?
Well,
Create a comprehensive and effective
Task
parking
is-
strategy.
yeah, the task is to create the strategy. That's sort of what I.
Well,
meant.
you had in number 3, there's established goals and standards for, you could have established goals and standards for parking I mean, when you say strategy, you're sort of probably also thinking about,
Oh, okay, so you're
where and
saying
when.
change 4 to establish goals and standards for.
well,
parking?
just, if these are tasks, putting a verb there rather than a noun is better.
Right. But I
Do you know
thought
what I
we,
mean? Establish a parking strategy, develop a parking strategy,
Right, right,
establish
right.
goals and standards for parking,
right,
including a comprehensive,
Sounds
as
good.
part of a comprehensive parking strategy.
Yours, you put whatever you want to.
Who wants the words?
I just want to
So
understand.
establish goals and standards for where
for parking.
parking should be located.
That's a lower level detail, or for parking in town.
For parking period. just
For parking is fine, just for parking.
For parking.
Right. And you,
These are like a big umbrella and then smaller umbrellas and.
I, from a planner's perspective,
Yes,
like in 1 and 2 and 3,
Mhm.
it's a statement, not a question. So I think so establish goals and standards for parking.
Yep.
So it'd be establish goals and standards for parking. quantity of public parking.
Well, it's more or less what it says, right?
I don't want to go into, I prefer not to get into too much detail because we're trying to kind of get people to the right city, to the right road, to the right address and the right room in the hotel. You know what I mean? And we want to kind of stay at this high level so that it can be, you know what I'm saying? We're doing the course organization, I think. So I think, just,
Established
establish
parking.
goals and standards for parking.
Okay, but then leave 4.1.2.
That's part of a goal, I think. You can say appropriate, you can say is needed. I mean, if that's more. We're getting.
Words, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just,
I think appropriate.
I think
is
it's, I mean, I think as it is, it may not be perfect, but it's clear what
fine. I
we're
mean,
asking.
we can always have a Rev 2.
Right, right.
All right, the last comment I have is, you guys talked a lot about, speed regulations and
Yes,
traffic calming, that kind of thing,
yes, yes.
enforcement.
Mhm.
There's a term that's used commonly now in industry, and it's called speed management.
Mhm.
And it's more of like an umbrella, kind of thing. You may want to include that. And then, enforcement is part of that. Traffic calming measures are part of that as well.
That sounds good. I like that.
But, okay, so define guidelines, I'm sorry,
Elizabeth, could you read us? that in that
611, just started off with speed management, define guidelines, etc. Is that okay, Steve?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so
Um,
611,
Laura, go ahead.
If we want to make it consistent with some of the ones above, we could just say determine goals for speed management in Concord,
Yeah, that's,
where are you putting it?
well, okay, the first, we've already changed this. The first thing we've said is what are appropriate speeds?
And so
And
instead of
then-
saying that, you could just say, what are the goals for speed management, which would encompass that.
Right, but I do think we need controlling vehicle from roadway design and then talk about regulation enforcement. I think separating those out.
Yeah,
Is how,
Referring to the one that we added.
yeah,
not
Elizabeth,
the-
you
are on
are
the-
going to, say.
No,
Can
I
you-
just-
Can you read the first?
Right now, it just says define the desired appropriate vehicle speeds for various roadways.
Okay, that's number one. And then,
So I think
And
we
you
should,
want-
so I'm proposing that we change that to define goals for speed management.
well, what if we just said, we put speed management in the second bullet by saying define guidelines for speed management through roadway design. That way we get that term in there. And then we separately talk about regulation enforcement, which I think is, as Nick had said, is a much more, is something that Concord can't, anyway, there's a lot of, it's a much vaguer thing, believe it or not. I mean, to me, on the highways, when I see a sign that says 55 and I look at the behavior, everyone looks at that as a minimum. That is, you're an idiot if you're going 55 and you're subject to all kinds of.
It's dangerous on Route 2.
So we have a larger societal and government problem here.
All right, so I changed 612 to define guidelines for speed management through roadway design.
Fine.
Are people okay with that?
Fine.
As a balance, we get the word in and we get it in the way that's probably most implementable by this town.
Okay,
Elizabeth, I hate to do this to you, just say that phrase again.
Define guidelines for speed management through roadway design.
Through roadway design. Okay, thanks.
So what I, and I'm taking out the blue highlighting, what I intend to do is I will send this final draft just to everybody to make sure it's what everybody thought, and then I can forward it to the select board.
okay, and post it, yeah.
Okay, and the rest of staff.
What about the title?
Okay. Well, we'll go around. Let me switch mode and I'll just give my input first. I don't like the plan. I agree with Elizabeth saying it's confusing when the study and the plan and the consulting, you know, has used that term. I think that, it's a framework, it's a program, it's a, assessment by this committee, of, the way forward. I'm not sure what people want there, but I think, you know, we've dealt with the scope of work, how that is not needed there. Transportation mobility, yes, those words are good, but, I think we need something else. Framework for transportation mobility,
I
Action.
never know what people mean by framework, because they use it
Okay.
in so many different ways.
Okay,
So
yeah,
that-
okay.
That would be.
I have the
good.
same problem with points.
I'm okay with taking plan out if we can have a better
Okay.
term. What's consistent with Envision Concord at this level? Is it just a plan? or what's-
Big ideas.
Big idea or objectives.
Transportation mobility objectives.
Yeah, I like that.
I mean, okay, we can put that in as a placeholder and let me go over.
Objectives, guidelines,
Let me go over.
suggestions.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, it
Recommendations.
starts with objectives. And so the plan first has, or vision.
Mhm.
So, and then from
Vision,
there,
I'm okay with.
you go to
Trans-
I'm
goals.
okay with vision, yeah. Is there
Okay,
anything
so
else?
let me go around to Mariana. Vision, objectives, other. Are you with us?
Yeah,
Please.
I'm sort of here. That sounds good to me. And I don't have a strong preference on that wording there.
Okay, Dan?
Yeah, either one is fine. I think maybe objectives.
Okay. Phil?
I'm fine with whatever language you pick. I have other bones to pick on the whole thing, so
Oh, okay,
before we get to the end of this.
okay, all right, Nick,
I'm okay with vision or plan. either one.
yeah, or objectives, or not?
I'm not so good with objectives. But, because I think
Okay,
it tries to be more comprehensive than just.
I think, given the detail in
Excuse me.
this, that the vision is acceptable to me, because it's a clear vision, not a fuzzy one. Laura? You okay
My
with vision?
preference would be for objectives, but I'm happy with vision if that's better.
Okay, you're going with vision.
Go with vision at this moment in time. Phil, I start over here. What?
Okay, so
what are you
I
feeling?
just,
What's your honest?
just to throw out on the table, I just want to say that if everybody recalls what happened last year, DPW budget was cut in half,
Mhm.
and there was comments made by I think it was the town manager or assistant town manager, that the town was relying on us to provide feedback to the finance committee and to the select board before taking action on full funding of the DPW budget.
Mhm.
So I think it's imperative for us to keep that in mind, that this has to be a timely process.
Mhm.
But we should try to wrap it up
Mhm.
by, Elizabeth, you can tell us November, December. I'm not sure what the time frame is for the finance committee to kind of pick up a finished product and have it to deal with in their discussions. But I think that's, in my mind, having the process conclude before the next round of other town bodies meetings is necessary for the DPW to get what they need. So that we can get this implemented as quickly as possible.
Ask them, they're here.
And yeah, we'll get to that, but, and by, the process, you're referring to the consultant assisted study.
Correct,
With
right, and with
recommendations or-
recommendations that then can be transmitted to select boards, they can deliberate on it. And then, consult with DPW, et cetera. Because I think that given the state of the road network, given the other needs of the transportation network, we can't wait another year of
Right.
fiddle faddle. We need to
Right,
get
and
this.
the timeframe is probably October that you should finish if you can. Because the town manager is working on budgets with the department heads in the fall. December is much too late.
Okay, so that really puts,
Possible.
that's why I wanted to get this out on the table, so we really need to be prompt about moving forward.
Comment?
No, I'll leave it up to Steve.
Okay, so, I think we have our document.
I actually, if
Um,
okay, Mark, I would love to hear Steve's response to that, if he has one.
What's the next
Okay,
topic?
it's kind of the next topic, is that okay? Because it revolves around the consultant plan rather than our document. I wanna take do I have a motion to accept this document, subject to maybe minor
Moved.
typo correcting? Second?
Second.
Second, okay. Phil?
Aye.
Nick?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Mariana?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
And myself, aye, that's unanimous. All right, now we move to the item 5 on the agenda, update on Stendek from our town engineer, Steve Dupran, on the scope of work and the whole, and anything else you want to say related to this is very welcome.
Oh, wow.
We love your,
Open,
we love your.
yeah,
uh,
you can say anything, right?
We need your help, yes.
All right, when it comes to timeline and, and preparation for the town meeting,
Mhm,
from public works side of things,
mhm.
we asked Alan to help with that, because I think he has a better idea of, the steps.
Okay,
Yeah, and we heard what Terry said, but, what we do and how we get to the final numbers and so.
Mhm, mhm.
I think Alan has more experience with that. All right, so, with TAC now finally having the advisory document on this transmission plan, I think that, and it, including the guiding principles, that to us will help us understand better, what the expectations of the Stantec study should be. All right, so it's a good thing we spent the time getting here. It's been months, but I think we're here. Right, so that to us is very helpful. And especially because there were previous comments about a study not addressing the real needs of the town, and results may not be beneficial in a practical way, as it was the way the study was heading. So it's good that we're getting here. The goal, or the goals, especially for pavement and sidewalk condition, that certainly align with our immediate needs. What Phil was saying earlier, the town manager, the financial department, they're counting on this study making the recommendations for a capital investment in this type of infrastructure. And again, timeliness is going to be important here. We all will agree that the travel experience is dependent on the condition of your infrastructure. So it's definitely a connection to a transportation plan. It's no secret, we have a big backlog in terms of pavement, work as well as sidewalk. What are the things that, well, we'll get into how we gonna get Stantec to deal with that. One more item that it's not necessarily addressed within your advisory document is looking at key corridors and the transmission needed for those key corridors. We think the key corridors are very important in terms of getting some work done within a 5-year, 10-year capital plan. And we like to include that plan, 1 corridor, 2 corridor, or 3, include the improvements on those corridors as part of this bigger capital plan. We believe that's what town wants to see for improvements, and that's where investment should be prioritized. The crossing Route 2, you can find corridors crossing Route 2 that should be worked on, and so we are looking at incorporating key corridors as part of this new transportation study, or ongoing transportation study scope, which to be amended. So let's talk about Stantec's scope. So there are about 75 percent spent was $100,000, so we down by
25.
Right.
We're not 75%.
oh, 25%. Okay, 75% left. Okay, yeah, yeah. That would be scary, right?
Where
Yeah.
did that go?
Yeah. Um,
Even more scary.
yeah. Yeah, so we've had a couple of revisions to the scope, going back 7 months or so.
Mhm.
The first one was when Megan was interested in how tax operating relation to the traffic management group and relation to public requests and you know, so we did get Stantec to respond to that, and they did provide a revised scope. And then the second time was when, you know, when we got a survey results and we did get from you, from TAC, some response,
Mhm.
a letter from me and,
Mhm.
and we sent that response over to Stantec, and they amended their scope once again. And so we have that as a current revised scope. No action on it, just some discussions. All the current tasks, the amended tasks and so on, all of that is translated into more money. So as it stands, we would need more money to at least address this new scope. Much of that, I think, will change because now we're looking at, you know, your document and trying to incorporate as many of those goals as possible in this study going forward. And I have looked again at Stantec's scope, and there are several tasks in their current tasks that can be modified to incorporate what you all want as well as what we want in public works. And some can be just expanded, you know, build upon. There are some tasks that that you have identified that, you know, in blue, that will have to be deferred simply because of the time to get those done and the cost to get those done will be, you know, we just don't have the luxury of both of those. And there are some tasks in the Stantec's revised scope that we probably wouldn't proceed with. The organizational structure part of it, we could defer that, probably could done it in-house. We see that being difficult to do in-house. No one has the time. But we can pull those out of the current scope. There are some meetings, some public meetings that can be done through your body instead of having Stantec do those. So in terms of trying to get a final scope and fee, we have to spend some time with, you know, staff themselves as well with Stantec trying to finalize what that new scope is going to be. Some of what you're asking for, some of what Public Works is asking for would require Stantec to bring in their engineering staff. And they do have, you know, Stantec is actually more of an engineering firm than a planning firm. So they do have access to the engineering staff, and we have used the engineering staff in the past. And I've talked to them about, you know, the possibility of them getting involved in the work going forward. Definitely more money is needed. We don't think we can get done what you're asking for and what we would like to have done, as well as, you know, what the planning side of the study is doing with a current 75% left. So Alan, town manager, and others, we have been looking at where we can get more funds to put towards the study. So we are going to be talking among staff. In fact, starting tomorrow, we're gonna have another staff meeting to look at moving forward with Stantec, and especially bringing them in and, you know, discuss scope, fee, negotiating, and try to get them going as soon as possible. I have been talking to Stantec, and we looked at the document, your document online. And they have given me an initial response, which I can just run through so you can see what they're thinking. Yes, that piece about the scope of work feedback, they saw that. I said that doesn't belong under this document. They said yes. But they looked at your items in blue. And these are simple comments, and I haven't digested, neither do I understand exactly some of the things they're saying, but they mentioned some of your blue items are covered in the current proposed standard scope, right? They want us to remember that the proposed mobility plan scope, that's their, what they call their plan, is to develop an overall plan and highly specific recommendations, I don't know if that's stated correctly in their part, such as a complete list of streets where sidewalks, bike lanes, etc., should be or likely not feasible. And they're saying their direction was to focus on key corridors, which is good news for us, right? This is what we were thinking about in public works. They looked at a focus on parking. They would like to know how does Concord view their parking management plan. So they want to know, they said, and we agree that this their study would likely not focus on this in huge detail. We think it's, we would suggest that a review of the 2013 plan be done. Maybe not by then. They can do a quick look, but maybe we need to figure out how to do an updated plan because things have changed, right? There might be new data to collect and then look at a plan. So anyway, there's going to be mention, obviously, in their study, but probably nothing in detail. Interest in overall costs, they can do that at a planning level. And I know Nick might want to know how to define that. We'll figure out.
The order of magnitude.
Right. They would look into benchmarking against other communities regarding transit service and pavement quality of roads and sidewalk. I will let you know, our data on road pavement condition is good. We've been doing a lot of work over the several last years. So it's a matter of just, putting that together with some analyses and giving you and us the information that we need with regards to what our target should be for pavement condition.
So we have a good measurement of the status quo.
Right. Our sidewalk quality is an inventory is not that good. We do have a database, but it needs work. And so that may involve engineering support from Stantec to get some good answers on sidewalk
So
quality.
just to get a clear picture of the current condition of the sidewalk network.
That's correct. All right, and one of the things they mentioned here, you can take forward, which was, as Stantec moves forward with the mobility plan work, it will be important to define the role of the TAC. Sounds like that's important to them, so. Once they understand this, they should include in the scope document. So anyway, that's a quick feedback I got from them. Obviously, we're going to be sitting down with them and talking about these things and others. And
So a quick question. So the last time there, did it connect in a way that says that Stantec wants to know what the role of the TAC is, for example, or Stantec wants something else? Because, for example, the idea of in the original sort of timeline that we saw from the consultant, there were some stakeholder meetings and whatever, and the workshops and whatever. But I think that this committee could have a public hearing to listen to the public without tasking the Stantec to run that. I mean, they could observe it or see the recording or whatever. But one of my concerns is that it could be more beneficial if we have a public hearing, if there's something to discuss, rather than tell us again what you want, because we've already kind of tried to capture that. So one of my concerns about the statement of work and the urgency of things is how we can sort of stage certain things in the study. I mean, if something is urgent to be, you know, if you need to get specific support for a capital funding effort, getting that as a first output of the study, while other things are still kind of percolating through and being done, might be one thing to consider. And in terms of bringing the public along with understanding the need for this infrastructure funding, it might be good to have something from Stantec at whatever level earlier, that we then have a public hearing and we say, here's what we're seeing coming towards capital funding for 2025. Just, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just so that we're not talking in generalities, we're starting to bring the public along with sort of more specificity of, we want to do all these things. We can talk about our vision, but our intention is to do this first, for the town to do this first.
Yes, so I believe they are thinking along those lines, that if TAC can be the venue for the public meetings, and all Stantec needs to do is provide us with the supporting information that can take, away some of the things that they have to.
Focus more resources.
Yes, and we'll
Yeah.
probably use that same money that, that have been to the other work that we're asking for. And certainly it's better when they bring you, recommendations and so on, that you can vet for them in the public.
Right, yeah, for us to vet, for the public to vet, and to inform the public, because that seems to be a challenge.
Yeah.
It's just, I guess, only a consideration I have is that some of these topics, parking is an example, okay? And it's not a top priority one necessarily, but it's just one that illustrates a problem, which is that it's a very contentious subject. Everyone has very strong opinions about parking, and frankly, most people are very poorly informed about what actually happens and what the implications are. If we're going to, using that as an example, if we're gonna engage the public, the residents of town, and the business owners about parking, I think that's a long-term educational thing. That's not gonna come out of one meeting where we throw some ideas out and get people's reaction to them. That's gonna require a lot of education and thought-provoking discussions about what's practical and what isn't. For instance, if the long-term goals are to reduce the amount of single vehicle occupancy that's happening in town for climate and other reasons, you don't need as much parking, right? If you have a public transit service, you don't need as much parking, right? If people are using the commuter rail more, you need a certain type of parking. So it's a very complicated thing. It's gonna take a long time. So that's my only consideration, that several of these transportation topics, we don't have a constituency that's thought these through very well. And it's gonna be an engagement and discussion and.
Well, I would, bring that back
My hand up.
specifically. Okay, go ahead, Laura, you speak first.
Just in response to, I know that parking wasn't so much in the scope of work originally, and it is highlighted in blue in this document significantly. And given what Steve is saying about sort of, having to defer and delay things, the one thing I do want to say specifically about parking, since Nick brought it up, is that the 2019 Nelson Nygaard study is extremely comprehensive, and really the parking situation has not changed significantly since then. And if you read the section of recommendations, I think it's very interesting to note that we just haven't done a lot of the recommendations. So I'm not sure if rehashing it through another planning process is actually going to get us closer to solving the problem. In some ways, I think that, to Nick's point, it's like the public education piece, it's the having discussions with the business community about these particular things. And I'm not sure if it's the consultants who are best placed to do that. I wonder if that's the job of the TAC, is to go and have these
Yeah.
conversations.
The TAC would have a open hearing to review that
Like, we could just,
parking study.
you could schedule like 4 hearings a year and just go down the list of recommendations, because there are like 10
But
recommendations.
that would be kind of independent or tangential to this study that we need some output.
But that's just why I wanted to bring that up, because when we're asking,
Yeah,
but when we're asking, Stantec to do things for us, I think it's really important, especially on the parking thing, to know that we have a really good parking report that was produced. I know it was 5 years ago, but it's still
Yeah.
incredibly
10
relevant.
years. Try 10
No,
years.
It's 2019. 2019 was the last parking study. I have it in front of me. It's called the Concord Parking Policy Analysis. The final report was produced in July of 2019, and it was prepared by MAPC.
Okay.
oh, okay, so that's different than the.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, I apologize. It references Nelson Nygaard, but that was a 2013 study. You're right, that was 10 years ago. But the MAPC report is very comprehensive. And I've gone back to this document many times when we've had conversations about parking, because like the planning board is clearly taking that piece of it forward, but there are lots of other pieces.
Yeah.
that
So perhaps we can
Is
also.
that document on a page?
I don't know if it's on.
Because I don't remember that
Or
document.
it's on
If
the
you could
parking
mention-
I was thinking about that along those lines too, that this might be something that we can think about. I don't like myself web pages that go on for like a 20-foot scroll, but we could have something on high level where you link to a page where
all the
there's parking
stuff.
documents,
Right.
and then we could consider at some point in time having a public forum on that.
I am
It's
gonna have to apologize. I have a meeting at
okay,
11:30.
if we can still run through.
Yeah, so I'm
over-
just gonna make you
Okay.
host.
Okay, so I can, thank you.
And then, yeah.
Okay, Alan.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm Alan
Cathcart.
Cathcart, Director of Public Works. I have 11:30.
Okay,
Water issues, but I
Okay.
just wanted to chime in very quickly that I'm very encouraged to see that you've got this vision document.
Mhm.
It's great. I know Steve works closely with Elizabeth on the mechanics, working with our consultant. As far as schedules go, I also appreciate that you've identified not everything has to be delivered at the same time. I think a critical path right now, it's really important for this group to understand, is town meeting and funding. We're talking about a big funding package. It's
Mhm.
gonna be significant. We're really gonna look to work with TAC, the Public Works Commission, with the Town Manager's Office. People are concerned we haven't been doing anything in transportation, but I think the last 6 months has been a kind of reassessment,
Mhm.
and, now we're establishing a foundation, which is great. The opportunities at town meeting will be is, in addition to what this study would have done independently, you're now gonna have a lot of visibility, a lot of opportunity to share in very public ways to complement what TAC is interested in, communicating, and we can identify those things that we'll be doing for fundings, as well as what else is going to be, moving forward. Schedule. So not everything's gonna be delivered, but at least people understand now it's integrated, it's comprehensive,
Mhm.
and it will take some time. And I think that's very important. So I just want to sort of put that out there, but I think what I'm hearing is you guys are on the right track, and, with Steve kind of helping with the communication with Stantec, I'm feeling like we now have some direction that staff can work with. So, and we'll keep you posted as far as this.
Yeah, we want to be kept in the loop. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you. Good,
thanks for
good,
being
good
here.
stuff.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you. So kind of following on that too, there's, the question has been raised about um, the whether it's important or not to have someone from Stantec come to a TAC meeting and hear directly from TAC or not. I think that we've gone a long way in developing and approving this document. And again, thank you, Nick, for spearheading that in a big way. I think that in dealing with consultant, it helps to have something in writing from TAC, but there may be a role, a usefulness of having Stantec come, for instance, to TAC and say, here's how we think we are going to support the town's effort to find a way to fund these important transportation related infrastructure projects. In case TAC has any questions. So I wonder, Stephen, if you think what your opinion is about the pros and cons of asking the consultant at whatever time to come and sort of run something by us and have us ask questions, or whether it's more important to kind of just let them get on with the work. And I'd like to also hear from other members too.
Well, okay, so we want to let them get on with their work, so we need to finalize, our agreement with them. Megan's goal was to get them resuming on August 1st. That we could get them to start working. There's still money in their contract.
Yes.
It's a matter of them staffing up that the right way, looking at what our priorities are, and having them work on those things while we figure out the rest of it, funding the rest of the work and that kind of thing. So it's possible. We're going to work aggressively in trying to get them going again. In terms of appearing, TAC, if it's important, if TAC thinks, it helps with one, reassuring everyone, the public, that action is taking place and, things are happening. We'll have them. I mean, it will cost us, and they don't work for free.
Right.
Yeah, I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
One area.
Yeah.
If they're working on something that 90% of the stuff, they don't have to come to TAC, but if they were just picking one thing here, like established goals and standards for pedestrian mobility, I would hate to see them start down a path and spend a lot of time doing something and then come back and it's like, no, that isn't what we meant. That isn't what we asked for. So if they're about to go off on a path that we feel that we need to be engaged in TAC, I'd like them to come very early and tell us the scope of what they're gonna do, and most importantly, what the deliverables are gonna be, okay? Because that's our only chance to make sure we're not wasting a huge amount of money on a project, okay?
Well, some of these things, I think, like with the maintenance, I think staff is very, better positioned than us to
Absolutely.
kind of make that determination. But I'll get to you, Phil, I'm sorry, before I lose my train of thought. One of the things that I think could be taken into account is the fact that Stantec might have multiple threads of work going on, and there might be this critical path for the maintenance capital funding that we may not need to be involved in until there's some preliminary report back from Stantec, however long that takes. But in parallel, if it doesn't slow that down, and there are some things where it looks like Stantec is a little bit puzzled as how to interpret that goal, then somebody separate from Stantec working that could talk to us. I prefer not to talk to the higher level people, but to lower level people who are actually, the people most in touch with the details.
Yeah.
So we could consider that, and we have a meeting on August 6th. That sounds too early, but possibly the next one on August 22nd or whenever it is, we could, if there's something useful that I don't want to slow the consultant down, and we don't want to spend money. So Phil, you had a comment, I'm sorry to.
So, I agree with, one thing you said, which we don't want to slow the consultant down.
Mhm.
But in my view, I think Nick is right, which is that we have to have clear communication from various sources and we're all rowing together.
Yep.
And that means spending money. We have
Yeah.
to spend the money.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
what we're here for. We don't have to spend big money. We don't have to make them drive to Concord. This can be a Zoom meeting.
Yep.
We can put it at the beginning of the meetings. So they're not sitting around waiting for an hour to have their turn and billing us. But my view is that it's imperative that we have a meeting with them as soon as possible to make sure that, you know, not only of the staff's concerns about, you know, the timing of this, the critical path nature of how this is going to make it through the various bodies in the town so that it's queued up for town meeting in 2025. But they also hear from us as to what we believe their priorities need to be, so that they're clear on it, and the only way they're gonna hear that clearly is from us.
Okay.
So, I think we should get them on.
Some other people.
It's not gonna necessarily happen before August first. But, you know, I think it can happen soon afterwards, so they're
Well,
not, as Nick
I
said,
mean, when they-
chasing after the wrong
Yeah,
goal.
so
But
I mean.
one other thing to say
Oh, yeah, sorry.
before we get off this topic, and that is that I think that if we are gonna have a public process, we should have the consultant help us create the process and run the process, even if that costs us more money. And because they will do a much better job of creating a process, just like they did the last time, than we are capable of doing. We're a bunch of volunteers. We're not, you know, professionals who are able to put together a planning charrette. And I think it's worth the money to have them run the show. So where that money is gonna come from is something I'll, you know, I'll kick back to the DPW and say, what's your budgeting been? We didn't have a very snowy year. You know, where is that money going? We didn't have a very snowy year 2 years ago either. Where is that money going? Okay, this is probably a $25,000 item to get them to do a much better job than we can possibly do.
Well, we
Is there
should.
$25,000 in excess budget somewhere? in some-
Respectfully, I don't know how much our DPW has excess budget for anything right now.
I understand, and maybe this is in the planning department.
Okay,
I mean,
I think we get, we
But
get
the
your.
point is, we need to find some money. We need to spend the money so that we get a better product. And we bring the public along, because at the end of the day, this process is not transparent to the public. We need to build a political constituency before the town meeting. Because what will happen is, if we do not do that at the town meeting, people will say, you spent $140 million on a new building. Darn it, we're not gonna spend money for the DPW, sorry. So you know, it's imperative on us to do the spade work
Thank
now.
you.
And the way to do that is to do it well, not in a.
Yeah, okay, well, we can talk, I mean, to me, I'm not saying that we should skimp on the money, but I'm concerned that. We need to time, say, a public hearing. To when there is something meaty and substantial, which will, of course, if we say Stantec has to present first pass over things, it'll mean them coming up with a presentation and then being present to answer questions, because we don't speak for them. But I rely on Stephen and the rest of staff to kind of tell us when is, you know, communicate to the consultant that, you know, we want some kind of not too far in the future checkpoint with the public. It sounds like maybe. I mean, if we gotta close by October, in some sense, we have to do it in September. August is not necessarily the best.
Or
time.
October 1st.
Yeah, or
Right.
October 1st. So we should be thinking about whether there's a sort of public checkpoint here, and it's in the scope already in a certain way. But I think we can do it more efficiently, and I also think it's a better. To me, it's more of a formal town public process if the Transportation Advisory Committee holds a formal public hearing. We can do it joint with the FinCom, we can do it I think that's very appropriate. We're talking about big money, so we can do it joint with the FinCom or anybody else who, in Public Works. You have everybody at the meeting. Laura? Sorry, I wasn't looking.
No, that's okay. I would just urge the TAC to let's get the consultants to produce something for us. You know, at this point, we've been sending all of our thoughts to them. They've been collecting thoughts from the public. You know, these people are professionals. They know what they're doing. I would like them to create something so that we can see what they're capable of, because I think that we're underestimating what we can get from them. And I think that trying to guide this so tightly has not served us that well. You know, we need to have, as you said, we need to have a public facing forum in the fall. It needs to happen before November and everybody gets busy with the holidays. And we need to use this as an opportunity to build that political constituency to support more money for transportation infrastructure in Concord. And it needs to happen in the fall. It's July, it's already halfway through July. So I just think we need to be really thoughtful about moving forward in a deliberate way towards that goal of presenting the community with some real good stuff in the fall to help support the Department of Public Works so that they can have money to make some of these things happen that so desperately need to happen.
Okay, no, that makes sense. So, Stephen, one way I would kind of follow up on that or kind of bring that together is say, these items here were not specifically, in the actions, not specifically put in order of priority, but it turns out that number one is our sort of critical path one. And so one of the things maybe you should communicate with, the staff should communicate with the consultant is that aiming towards a public forum latest October 1st, let's say, ambitiously, we would like some kind of first cut at this action one. So that they know that, as they do the analysis, they can start to put the information in a visual format and not, you know what I'm saying, not wait for a final report. So it's almost like interim report on action one or something like that.
Yeah,
Does that make sense? Is that a reasonable thought?
Yeah, that and probably a couple others that we would want to make sure
Get in there.
it has a.
Okay, good. I'm not saying exclusively that, but I'm just trying to emphasize.
A couple of quick notes on what I heard, a few minutes ago.
Mhm.
Consultants would like to put their low-level people out there. For
Yeah, they
a number of reasons. They don't.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, you'll find that all the time. And so that
Just ignore my comment. It in the business I work in, that's how it works.
So Phil picked on Public Works snow budget. It's probably one of the ones that you don't want to go after because this is what they will tell you. I can't speak for the budget, but what I know about snow budgets, 40 nuisance storms, those are the little ones, the little dusting or whatever, are just as costly as 20 2-foot storms. So that's what they'll tell you. Because they have to have the same number of people out there, same number of pieces of equipment, everybody on standby, that kind of thing. So I don't know if they have any savings from the last 2 years. They probably do, but I can't speak to that. So just if you're about to close, I just want to let you know on this topic. So if you look at the current study, it's like how Stantec stated in their response to me, right? The current plan is to develop an overall plan and with recommendations such as the complete list of streets where sidewalks, bike lanes, etc. should be or are not feasible. And the focus would be on key corridors. So it was a plan to give us with concepts and so on that we can use, tools that we can use, right? With what you're doing in your vision document and what we'd like for the funding, it's a shift in a focus or part of the study to the infrastructure.
Yes.
So it's now trying to address both of those, right? And so that's a change. We'll have to have a schedule developed to figure out how we can achieve all of these things.
Yes.
Some of
yes.
them within the study, some of them
Yeah.
beyond the study.
Yeah.
Now, so that's what we'll work on,
Okay,
and obviously trying to find the money to.
right. And if,
So-
and please let us know if, let us know if there are, significant obstacles to trying to, address this critical path, items. The other things we can be sort of more, flexible, future looking, ongoing, but this critical path one, TAC is very much, involved in the public, outreach and input and, developing support and, getting the word out there. So we should definitely, know if, consultants as well, we can't provide anything back on that till November or December. That would not be a great,
That one.
that would be a matter of concern.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, thank you so much, Stephen. I really appreciate your being here. Great to have
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Yeah,
The discussion.
and I'm glad you could come here.
I think we're
Right.
ready pretty soon. It'll be almost-
Okay, yeah, we're almost done. So there was no specific correspondence. Terry Ackerman, are you there? Would you
I
like to-
am, yes,
Yes, would
and
you like to
I'd like to make a few quick comments. I
Sure.
think you guys, I really like that document you did today. It's a really good step forward.
Thank you.
I also want you to know that, the town manager is planning to do some kind of an article like $50 million for bonding for road work and streetscapes and so it, and the select board has it as one of their top goals this year. So we're on board with you guys and we really appreciate your efforts. That public forum sounds really good to have. We are going to need a lot of public backing, like Phil says. Also, I wanted to just explain a little bit about the liaisons for a minute. The MCI group is working on the Rotary and traffic through West Concord that will all be impacted because of MCI. So this is why you guys need to like tie in with them a little. Also, Economic Vitality is working a lot on parking, which came up a lot today. And the 250th has a big plan with their public safety subcommittee. So I really urge you to get your wonderful ideas heard by these other groups. And finally, do you guys need a new member? Because this is a full group, but I think there's 6 people here.
Yeah, we have one currently vacant seat. I've talked to someone in the town manager's office saying that it would be really helpful to fill that.
Yeah,
And to make sure we always can get a quorum.
right. So
I've put in a couple of requests for the action to be taken on that.
all right, I'll announce it again. And actually, I forgot to ask that document, the goals that you're going to give to the consultant and everything, and you're sending it to the select board. What do you want the select board to do with it?
Well, let me, because just because I go back to when some of this stuff started in the Envision Concord plan, I think, given that we're an advisory committee to the select board, I think it's, at this point, it's appropriate to take that document for you to bring it to the board
Right,
and say, this is what TAC has been doing. They put forth that this is Concord's vision, based on everything that's happened on the Envision Concord plan, on subsequent sessions with the public and with feedback they've gotten from the select board in the past. And we want to make sure you guys understand this and that this does represent the select board's view on what Concord's vision is for transportation.
okay, then I'm going to recommend that it go on our agenda when it's finished.
Okay, which means someone should come to the meeting, right?
Right.
Yes,
So let's see if the chair will agree. Let's see what happens, but I think it would be good for the select board to not just get an email, but to discuss it for at least 15 minutes, with the
Yeah,
chair and
sure,
whoever wants
sure.
to come.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think the critical need was to get this done to enable the staff to adjust the consultant scope of work.
Right.
And we'll let the dust settle a little bit, and then we should bring it to the select board to inform them about that action.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, so there's no member of the public left here. I don't think. Is anybody online?
Yes,
Tanya has
Oh,
her hand
Tanya.
up, Mark.
Tanya,
yes,
are you
hello,
there?
yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
Identify yourself, please.
yes, Tanya Gala, 62 Prescott Road. Thank you everyone for a very intense and comprehensive meeting. I wanted to say thank you to Laura for the MBTA, the report from the MBTA meeting, and it sounds very serious. The consequences of not doing anything, those lost train rides, lost ferry rides, those are so important for the public everywhere. Those who maybe don't even have a car, never mind the more important, maybe or not as important, the climate issue. So maybe at some point you could really look into that, see what that's all about. Also, thank you to Laura about the Route 2 letter that she mentioned that she drafted, and I'm so glad you guys are going to discuss it soon on a Zoom meeting. As far as I just had this thought that when you say about your document, visions versus objectives, I think visions is great for a starting point for anything, but I think if you had chosen objectives, it might have sounded that you're taking yourselves more seriously, like you've gone through the vision and this is what you have identified as actions. So otherwise it leaves it too open-ended for the consultant, maybe. As far as public input, before you hold any, or while you contemplate a forum or timing or who holds it, perhaps you could make an open call for letters from the public, like open-ended letters. Let's hear from people who really care about an issue enough to write a letter to you, not just respond to some survey, but things, it shows a different angle. It shows that people care about such and such issue enough, because otherwise most people who take surveys, they just go by what is mentioned, but this way you get more authentic kind of input. So any kind of call for letters. And then lastly, a mundane issue, which is that sometimes when there are sidewalk protrusions in order to help pedestrians, it might be nice to ask to have those protrusions, the edges of those, painted for better visibility. They are not all that visible at night or even when there is shade on the street. So thank you again, everyone.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, we've completed our business, our agenda, so I adjourn the meeting. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.